Okay, so I did some of the initial stuff at the beginning of the turn, played out the Central Powers turn on the west front very quickly since the little rules overview that I gave earlier. But I want to look at the great battle. There's going to be one main battle fought throughout the year, basically, on each front, by each side, potentially. There are some fill-ups about that. So, for example, the Central Powers aren't doing any grand offensive on the west front at all. But let's take a look at what's happening on probably the biggest one going on right now, which is the French grand offensive against Thionville. Now, first thing that I do, and this is the first action on the turn, it has to be the main army, which is, I believe, the French 3rd. I activate the 2 French armies that are attacking, and they're hitting, let's get this, Thionville itself. And I'll also take the fortress outside of that, because that's going to be important as I set up the battle. Now let me see if I can get the battle set up directly. The first thing that I have to do is I have to worry about, well, what do the Germans actually have there? And the unit that they have in that hex is this stack right here from the 3rd Army. And let's get the general. They've managed to assign, who is it, Van Linnigan over there. And we'll set up the defensive line there. Let's get the German units set up. Nope. I think that one was damaged. So there's our German force. We're going to call on reinforcements at this point. Now, the Germans are allowed to pull an artillery in there. And they'll pull... they have no other artillery that they can pull into this battle. So, this is what the Germans actually have in defense. Let's get the French offense set up. Now, let me see if I can do this without messing up my board and still be able to see what's going on. No. Crap. Okay, there we go. But that doesn't give me a good panorama. Okay, I'm going to have to do this by hand. Sorry for the shakiness. Okay, so the French are going to attack, and they bring in Foch from the 1st Army, and he's going to bring these units into play, and he's also going to bring artillery into play, and we're going to have the 3rd Army, which is under Sarai, who's over here, and he's going to bring, we got a lot of units under Sarai. He's not bringing them all with him. This is the main French army. Ooh, crappies. Okay. So that's the French 3rd Army in position there. He's going to also bring artillery with him. And then the French are going to activate their grand headquarters and pull a couple of artillery into play. And that's all going to be useful. So there's what the French have available. Let me set up a couple more things and get the lines in place, and maybe you'll be able to see what I'm doing vaguely. Okay. So first thing I do is I set the German units up and get some artillery on them. I use these guys to indicate the trench lines, and crap. This is hard to do quickly. We get the German set up here. The French have to maintain their army position. Put these extra artillery in place. Okay. And then the French are going... So here's the basic Setup of the pieces, 2 French armies set up in columns, pretty much in the order I want them to fight. The Germans set up in column in the order they want to fight. I think the Germans are going to bring another unit in. They'll grab some piece of crap off the 3rd Army. They're allowed to bring these reinforcements in at the beginning of the grand battle. So they brought something really shitty in, hoping to absorb some losses. The French now are going to select some aircraft. They know that the Germans have a couple of planes in place. So, and since this is their major fighting engagement, I'm going to pull 2 French fighters and a French bomber into play. And the Germans, in order to defend themselves, will throw a couple of German fighter planes into play. All right. So now we're at the position where we're at the preliminary of the battle. And what's going to happen here is the fighters are going to match off. And essentially they fight one-on-one, a couple rounds of combat, whatever's left at the end of it, and there's possibility of an ace appearing or whatever, is able, and that can be both sides, is able to perform some missions during the combat. Generally, at this point in the game, they can do observation missions, which can help the bombardments, and they can do some tactical support. That's about it. There's not a lot more that they can do during a combat. That's fought out with the aerial combat tables, and you do that as a comparison, rating the actual air units values, and those are modified by the current values of the different aerial indicators. Right now, the French have a little bit of a bonus. No, the Germans have a slight bonus on speed. Everything else is pretty much the same, except that the Germans have a reconnaissance bonus, which isn't going to help because they're defending, and the French have a tactical support bonus, which would help either side. After that's taken care of, we then will go to the preliminary bombardment. And at that point, the French are going to do a massive bombardment, which means they're going to use a lot of their ammunition. And right now they have, 10 of it. So they'll probably use, they may only do a minor bombardment. They're going to throw gas in, which gives a slight advantage at this point. No major advantage. They've already gotten that for their first use. And they roll on a table to try to decrease these entrenchment markers. Those are a bonus to the defender's strength. And then what happens is, after that, and some of the German units will get damaged. The German artillery and the fortress are able to counter artillery, and that reduces the effects of the French artillery. Once the damage is done to the German units and the trenches are reduced, we fight out one by one rounds where each of these 2 columns attacks the opposing unit. And it's going to be attack strength versus defense strength on a chart, which is over here, and which relates different kind of losses ranging from basically nothing up to a 2-point loss, which could destroy a unit if it fails a morale check, or if it doesn't expend replacement points. We do 4 rounds of that, and then we come to the lull. And at the lull, you're able to destroy other units in order to rebuild your current units. You can't just use replacement points for that. Then there has to be a number of rounds equal to the obstinacy value of the generals. Now, in this case, the worst one is Foch. He has a 4 obstinacy, which means we have to go 4 more rounds of combat. If he gets knocked out, we'd only have to go 3 rounds with Sarai because he's not quite as bloody-minded. And once you've done that, you can go all the way up to 10 total rounds, depending on whether you think you can win. And you just keep fighting it out, round by round, rolling dice each time for each pair-off, until one side either retreats or time runs out. It's very, very bloody. It's very, very roll-intensive, but it actually covers and allows for a lot of different options going on in it. One thing I got